Today we're going to be putting Garou into Dragon Ball, a totally original topic no one else has thought of before.
Hello, I'm also here in this video. Christian Kemba, or Crimbus if you know me from Discord, will be talking about how Garou will doing in Dragon Ball. Many people will be surprised, and we'll give multiple different ends and scales about how we scale the character. Me and Godzilla scale Garou differently, so it's going to be interesting to see the results we get.
So before we get started, let's just address the simple fact that any form of Garou before he turns into a monster is going to die to even very, very early Dragon Ball characters.
This is 100% true. The feat of Master Roshi blowing up the moon, something that almost every character in the second World Martial Art Tournament scales to, if not vastly surpasses, is more than anything that any monster Garou has. And this feat would also be something that could just nuke the entire battlefield, given that it could blow up the moon. So with that, any of those characters would all be a monster Garou. We want to talk about Cosmic Fear Mode Garou, the big boy. We want to see exactly how strong Garou is.
Yeah, if we stuck with just Monster Garou, the most you're gonna get is he dented the earth. That's cool and all. How about Piccolo with one hand saying, "Be gone," and the moon just poofed away? So we're going to use Cosmic Garou because really, he's the only one worth discussing.
With that being said, me and Godzilla have different scales for Cosmic Garou, and with that, I think it'd be fair if Godzilla starts up with his end, and I'll do my end after. Godzilla, do you want to cover Garou's speed and strength according to your scale?
In my scaling, Cosmic Garou's stats look like this. In his initial form, he's large planetary, via upscaling off the planetary feat of denting in the Earth at a quick speed, as well as his gamma ray burst and mini black hole, being calced to that level as well. He then goes through exponential growth, mapped out to be about 60 times or so, which would get him into Dwarf Star level, which is consistent given the fact that he was surpassed verbatim by the Serious Sneeze, which has calculations in the small to normal star levels of territory. As for speed, he should be at least FTL plus, arguably MFTL. There's MFTL plus calcs for lower characters in the verse, but I find them to be very inflated, especially since Garou at first had trouble reacting to the punch squared knocking him and Saitama to Jupiter's moon in a few seconds. He couldn't perceive that, but is MFTL plus a little weird. With the growth, however, his speed also massively increased, so he should definitely be MFTL plus by the end of the fight at least. And to address a certain thing, I think it's best if I turn to my co-host.
So with Godzilla having gone over one half of the scale, I'm now going to be looking at things that are a bit higher end. This is like if we were to throw Garou a bone and see, okay, how high can we get? How strong is Garou? And the feat that Godzilla was referring to is, of course, the Galaxy Hole, where what happens is the serious punch squared happens, Garou and Saitama get sent flying, somehow only to Io, but their attack is so large that many people will point out a hole in space and say stars, or even some people will say galaxies are destroyed. Now, I will not say the galaxy is destroyed even with my generosity. There are trillions more stars than galaxies. That's a 1 in a trillion option. However, destroying stars from such a great distance can reach an extremely high level. In my own very long Garou video, you're very much welcome to sit through that, you can see exactly how high this is and how it reaches in the very low end of galaxy level from a very strong blast away. And then, of course, as Godzilla mentioned, Garou gets about 60 times stronger using the exponential graph. Also, mentioning on the speed sides of things, if we want to throw Garou a bone, we can look at how Saitama and Garou were fighting on Io as Io itself was splitting apart. A calculation that took many, many pixels to calculate, given just how large Io was, reaching around 800,000, and doing so you can get into the low millions speed of light, about 14 million, I believe, off the top of my head. That being said, that is the absolute maximum you'd scale Garou when you give him the benefit of the doubt. As Godzilla said, there are many inconsistencies, like one of the attack potency-based inconsistencies was Garou thinking that Saitama might be killed by a star, things like that.
Yeah, another contradiction that I find is that Garou looked back the same direction the punch squared fires, and there are numerous stars in that same direction, including the sun according to Garou himself, the guy with the cosmic knowledge. So, the way his attack fired, the guy with the cosmic knowledge thinks that stars are still there, yet he's supposed to be galaxy level. Either you have to argue OPM Sun has galaxy level durability, or maybe they didn't nuke a hole in the space. But we'll consider the option just because Dragon Ball, as we'll see, kind of makes it necessary.
That's true. And speaking of Dragon Ball, should we get into the Dragon Ball scaling? The lower end scaling for Cosmic Garou is within the large planetary to dwarf star, and then we have speeds of FTL plus at the like more generous side of the lower end. So in Dragon Ball Godzilla, where would you put those range of characters?
I'd say Garou would be somewhere between the Saiyan and maybe Namek Saga after his growth. I think someone like First Form Frieza is too much for him, given the fact that with one finger he produced about the same amount of energy as Saitama's serious sneeze, which Garou could not replicate. I don't know why people think he was just caught off guard or something. The narrative literally spells it out that yes, Saitama became so powerful, Garou could not copy him, and so he had to basically try to run away from the fight. So Frieza, who's at least that strong and incredibly merciless, I think Garou's in a lot of trouble. As for speed, we can scale Frieza comfortably off of the feat Goku performs in the anime where he dodged meteors while traveling to Namek. The lower end of this speed feat is well within the thousands of times light speed range, whereas the higher end, if you think Namek is in another quadrant or galaxy, gets into the trillions of times light speed range. And Goku did that with a power level of about like 10,000 or so. There's also mentioned by the anime director that Frieza's probably about as fast as his ships. He doesn't specify which form of Frieza. Even just downscaling it to first form, these ships can cross through galaxies in a few minutes at most. That's speed that One Punch Man has just not established. Maybe in time they'll get there. They don't have it now.
I'll say my quick scale of like where I think the lower end of Garou would be with his large planetary to like dwarf star range, as well as his FTL plus speed. Because interestingly, me, despite going over the more general stuff for Garou, I think on the lower end of things, which I think is perfectly valid, I don't think Garou makes it very high at all into Dragon Ball. So hear me out. This is how it goes. If we look at Master Roshi when he blew up the moon, then we look at someone like Piccolo, we can see that very quickly, at a very small power level change, the amount of energy has grown exponentially. And the next time we see a big feat, we can look at the filler where Vegeta with 2 fingers blew up Arya, something that is calculated at Dwarf Star, just like some other feats in Dragon Ball, which would be like King Vegeta blowing up multiple planets. That's been calculated about there. With these sort of feats coming in within the filler and lining up with the exponential growth rated from both Master Roshi and Piccolo Jr., we then start to think to ourselves, in terms of power, not only doesn't stand a chance against Frieza, he's probably getting capped off at the late sides of the Saiyan saga. I'm not sure if Garou has the power to beat someone like Vegeta, for example, at power level of 18,000. After all, he blew up Arya with 2 fingers, and also he did this while suppressed, because when he landed on Earth, he was holding back so much that Goku injured him first and Kaioken times 2 before he even powered up. This was not even full power Vegeta. Even if so, what stops him from just going Great Ape? He can make his own move. That a Great Ape Vegeta would probably beat Garou as well. And that gets in the point of speed. We said that in the lower ends, Garou is at FTL+, so that's in the 10s to 100s times the speed of light. Now, one thing I've made clear in some of my videos is where I think Goku first beats the speed of light, or like what power level range, and it's about the 180 range, which is the 22nd World Martial Art Tournament. Here we have the infamous Solar Flare feat. We have several feats of him dodging lasers within the anime, one of which that happens in the manga I quite like, is Goku dodging it while upside down on his head and also dazed at the same time. We also have this same Goku jumping all the way from the ground up to the clouds and snatching a Dragon Ball before a Dragon Ball can move 10 feet. These are the same Dragon Balls that can fly around the world in a second. So there's lots of different ways you can get this Goku at power level of 180 up to the speed of light, or at least close to it, or sometimes even higher. Try and calculate it. But if you then look at that and consider, wait a minute, Vegeta's power level of 18,000 is 100 times that, meaning Vegeta, even on a linear scale, would actually fit the max speed of Cosmic Garou on the lower end of Cosmic Garou's scale. So I actually think that, even me, the more generous guy here, don't think Vegeta would be beatable by the Cosmic Garou.
To add on to this, even if you have contentions with Kid Goku at light speed, Piccolo very directly shot the moon in a few seconds or a few manga panels, just within the time frame of him saying, "Be gone, moon." and it was gone. That's relativistic speed at the very least, arguably light speed. And that Piccolo was literally perception blitzed by Raditz, who's only at 1500. Or 1200 if you're going purely off manga, which that's the level of Cyberman. So a Cyberman could blitz the speed of light. What do you think Saiyan Saga Vegeta is going to do? He can point 2 fingers at those bastards and they explode.
If you really want to go there, because I know some people like this as well, you have Master Roshi blowing up the moon, and the anime makes it really dramatic. But there's something in the manga that most people miss. Master Roshi shoots the moon, and no one even notices the moon's gone. No one saw it happen. They all have to be pointed out by Roshi. By the way, the moon's gone. They look up and like, oh god, it hit the moon. No one saw it happen. Even the martial art announcer who has sunglasses that blocks out light, blocks out the solar flare, he could not see it hit the moon. So with these type of things, you can very easily get characters in the early arcs there. You also have that statement with Raditz from Piccolo himself saying he's faster than the speed of light. The most narrative direct comparison. You can't get any more direct than a character saying he is faster than the speed of light.
Yeah, and if you really want to be nitpicky about, oh, well, that's just the English dub. Well, in the manga version, Piccolo's attack translates to Light of Death. That's what Makanko Sappo means. And Raditz dodged it, and he said, nobody moves that fast. Despite the fact he can shoot relativistic ki blasts very easily. So I think that's still at least light speed scaling for an early Saiyan Saga character. Now, the reason why I say Cosmic Garou's FTL Plus is because at the lower end of the spectrum, since there's no time frame given for the IO feat, if we assume it happened in 1 second, which is a generous highball, I'd say, that means that Saitama would be hitting Garou at about 14 times the speed of light, which is consistent with the Versus Battle Wiki calc, putting it at about 25 times the speed of light at least, and thus we upscale off of that. So they're at least FTL plus at the lower end, and of course scaling higher with that exponential growth. We'll handle things like Garou's copy mode later on after the scaling's been addressed. Would you like to handle the higher end stuff?
So now moving on to the higher end of feats for Dragon Ball to deal with the higher level strength of Garou. Now I had a recent video of mine where I talked about Solar System level Namek arc within Dragon Ball. And one of the great examples I like to use in that video is a lot of people use the explosion of Namek, but there is actually a scale much higher than that and concretely in the multi-solar system range. In fact, trillions of times more than any Star Destroying feat, and that was the Spirit Bombs scale. And what I mean by that is Goku's ki control from the Saiyan arc up to the Namek arc only gets better. He trains and gets it even more dense. Despite this, the Spirit Bomb on Namek is absolutely gigantic, and I don't think anyone will contest it. Compare that to the one on Earth, it's nowhere near as big. And if you compare the ki control of someone like Goku to other characters, even like Vegeta with his Spirit Ball, you can then start scaling up the size of this to easily get multi-solar system. However, in a conversation I had with Godzilla, he mentioned one of the feats that I actually underestimated, and that is the anime Namek explosion. Godzilla, do you want to talk about that real quick?
Yeah, so a lot of people have argued about this feat for years, but in the anime version of Goku's flashback from when he survived Namek, we see that the explosion actually encompasses a chunk of a galaxy. And it's a pretty substantial chunk of the galaxy too. Since it's actually never shown to really zoom into it, we see that it takes about a quarter of the galaxy. And even if you wanted to say, oh, well, that's just dramatic effect, there is about 3 or 4 statements confirming that Frieza's death ball scattered an explosion across the galaxy.
With that being said, and thinking about this on a narrative level, Garou's feat that he popped a hole in the sky, destroyed stars, which was done with Saitama, that feat is identical to having a big portion of a galaxy being blown up. And this is something that Frieza did, for one, so he scales to, he did it at 50%. But what's really impressive is Frieza got cut in half, and then he lost all of his ki and had to ask for Goku for more ki. And even then, Goku attacked him back anyway when Frieza tried to kill him, and eventually snuffed out all of Frieza's energy. So he's knocked out with absolutely no defense whatsoever, cut in half, bleeding out. And yet this basically dead Frieza survived this explosion which made a hole in a galaxy. This means you can put Final Form Frieza on his deathbed surviving something that Garou did with Saitama's help. Now, of course, Garou gets stronger with the exponential scale, but it should be mentioned that this is already approaching the higher end of cosmic level Garou just in this speed already.
Yeah. And on that note, even if you want to say, oh, well, maybe Saitama and Garou got more stars, the problem is we only have the perspective of people near Earth, whereas in the Dragon Ball feat, we had the perspective of a galaxy. People seem to really underestimate how big space is. Stars make planets look insignificant. Our sun is about 1,000,000 times larger than Earth in terms of volume. The sun is a pretty small star, all things considered. The distance between solar systems is enormous. There's trillions of those within even a smaller galaxy, which, if you want to argue this is a smaller galaxy, the feat is still at least multi-solar system level, which is about the high end of the series punch squared. And even then, Frieza survived this on such a low amount of ki that it's absurd. He was beat up by Super Saiyan Goku, cut in half, had his face blasted off, knocked unconscious, then survived Namek exploding, and at most maybe a few meat bits were dangling out of Frieza's carcass. And even then, King Cold later says in the anime, my son is not so easily killed by a planet exploding.
To add on to that, so we mentioned about how you can see stars from Earth and the difference between that and seeing outside the galaxy. From an outside perspective, we can see the totality of the galaxy, which, for a perspective or numerical amount, that can be from billions, hundreds of billions, or trillions of stars. Now, from Earth, if you think about with the naked eye, you can only actually see a few thousand stars. One of the Google estimates is 5,000 to 6,000. So with that being considered, you can really have this feat from Garou's hole in the sky be drastically lowered by simply considering the fact that when this feat happened, it isn't extending as far as we think. If we want to be super critical about it, even accepting the feat, we can say that any star not drawn is just one out of view. And there's a limit physically, pixel-wise, just how far away something can be. So it is quite generous to put them on the same sort of level.
Right. So, with it being established that even a very weakened Frieza can survive punches near that of the serious punch squared, or if you want to be very conservative, since 50% Frieza did the feat while holding back to not get caught in the explosion, this means that at most, Cosmic Garou is Namek Saga tier, since 50% Frieza could do what he and Saitama needed the punch squared to accomplish. So perhaps you could say that Cosmic Garou after the exponential growth would be stronger than the likes of Frieza and Super Saiyan Goku, but this is where the speed issue comes back into play. Do you want to handle that, Crimbus?
As Godzilla said earlier, we know that one of the feats that happened in the Namek Saga very early on was Goku's ship flying to Namek. And I'm one of the people who personally believe that Namek is in a different quadrant, because it's not in King Kai's jurisdiction. He straight up says this, and he can see all across the universe. Despite this, it only takes Goku's ship 6 days to travel to Namek, and while traveling, flying at this direct speed, these meteors that are coming to Goku in the anime, Goku is able to avoid. And even if those meteors were actually staying still and it was Goku's ship traveling towards them, that's at least the speed of his ship itself, which, as Godzilla mentioned earlier on in this video, that feat is in the trillions of times the speed of light. To make this even more impressive, we can also say about how Goku is not able to move properly, because in case you guys don't know, Goku was having trouble in this very example. It was his first time in a spacesuit, outside standing on the station of his ship, and when he was standing on there, he had no sense of balance, he couldn't control what he's doing, and these meteors suddenly come at him, and he's instinctively dodging them. So it's even more impressive, even considering how early on it was. And this was a Goku that was fresh out of just coming from Earth, going on his way to Namek. Again, for some more context for people who don't know, within the anime, on halfway to Namek, there was a particular incident that happened where the ship malfunctions, and the gravity accidentally turns up to 100 times Earth's gravity when Goku was only meant to be on 50 times. And this made Goku realize just how hard he needs to train, and his training started to get much more intense and reaching higher levels. In the early parts of Goku's training to Namek, before the first 3 days, his progress is nowhere near reaching that 90,000 he has by the end of the training. It was until that incident happens, where the gravity accidentally goes up to 100 times Earth gravity, He isn't training to his absolute fullest. That's the point where he starts eating senzu beans just to recover. Some other people may say that, oh, this is anime only. This feat doesn't happen in the manga, so we shouldn't count it. Something ridiculous like that. But one thing that can be directly considered is, when Goku is fighting Frieza on Namek, they straight up disappear from King Kai's view. And King Kai can see Goku's ship. So this implies they can be faster than Goku's ship. However, what makes this more impressive is King Kai can find Goku's ship within somewhere between two quadrants of the universe. That is a lot harder than a needle in a haystack. Meanwhile, Goku and Frieza are only fighting on Namek. That area is a lot smaller, and King Kai could not see them. He could not find them at all. This means that they must be going a lot faster than the ship, to the point where no matter how hard King Kai would search, he would never be able to find them, even given the much smaller search area.
I know a lot of people really want Cosmic Garou to fight Cell, but here's where I'll jump in to say why it's kinda hard to get him there. Let's say that you have Cosmic Garou initial at 50% Frieza level, right? Since they perform basically the same feat. Okay, Exponential Growth Garou is 60 times stronger and faster. Frieza would only get about twice that, Super Saiyan Goku about twice that as well. A little bit more, but, you know, regardless. But then the anime has a very interesting statement where Mecha Frieza throws 10 times the energy Frieza used to blow up Namek at Trunks, and Trunks catches it with one hand and makes fun of him. So 10 times that multisolar feat is nothing to Trunks? The same Trunks who is getting absolutely bullied by 17 and 18 really badly, to the point that he straight up said Super Saiyan Goku, who blocked his attack with one finger, would still have died to them. Then Goku and Gang trained for 3 years. According to the manga, we see Piccolo and Gohan training with Super Saiyan Goku. Then, despite this, 19 is able to put up a fight against weakened Goku. Granted, Piccolo said he was like way off his game, but still. Then Super Saiyan Vegeta is argued to be stronger than that. 18 obliterates him pretty badly. She's the weakest of the android trio. Piccolo gets massively stronger, surpasses 17 a bit, makes Vegeta freak the hell out, and then first form Cell, after killing a lot of people, beats him and 17 at the same time. Then he eats 17, getting several times stronger. So at best, you can maybe get Garou to semi-perfect Cell level. Once we get to perfect Cell, Cell's strength increases massively. We know this because his ki, just from transforming, was felt on Namek, which is again, arguably in a different quadrant of the universe, or at least in another galaxy. Cell also believes he could destroy everything over time. Now, we don't know how long this would take, but presumably, we can use the upscaling to get him to roughly galaxy level or higher. And if you really want to think that him destroying everything is a single blast attack, and think Cell has infinite battle power or whatever, then I don't know what Garou would do to universe-busting Cell.
It's quite ironic. There is a statement that people like to use for Garou where they talk about a feat that I can't find that happened, saying that Garou shook the universe. And I believe this statement was something that was said by an author and not actually something in the manga. Meanwhile, Cell, at his birth, being sent on Namek, is more closer to shaking the universe. And there is a dub in the English dub where Piccolo straight up says when Cell is powering up to fight Gohan, he too is shaking the universe. So Cell actually has more claim to that feat than Garou. So even if we were to be like very generous, Cell powering up is more powerful than Garou's actual attack potency in the very highest level on a very dubious scale.
On top of this, you can argue more sorts of galaxy scaling off of the different beatdowns happening in that part of the arc, especially if you're going to include the movies, which some of them may be canon or may not, but there are statements that people like Cell and Broly might actually be comparable, as it's mentioned in one guidebook that Teen Gohan from the BoJack movie and the Cell Saga was stronger than the Goku that beat Broly, which if you take that and Broly destroying a galaxy quadrant, I'm not sure what Garou could do about people like that. I suppose now it's time we talk about Garou's hacks. So what can Garou do in a fight, Grimbus?
Well, he has a few things here and there. So his main things we'll say in his Cosmic Garou form is forgetting all his old martial arts and just copying other people. So whatever he copies is going to be better than what he already has. He does gain a few tricks. He stole some from Glass, and that was being able to make portals, being able to use his gravity fist. But in the end, these aren't super effective. It's more like a form of teleportation, which really get outmatched in a lot of circumstances. We saw with Saitama, he was able to, with a higher speed, be able to end up in Garou's, was it his wormhole before Garou himself was able to go through it, which is quite funny. We also know that one of Garou's other abilities that he has is quite good, is that he emits a type of radiation that just kills people over time. It was shown that before everyone went back in time, Earth had pretty much died just because of Garou's existence. I don't really think of much else that's quite useful. The thing that should be brought up is the exploding heart release fist, one of Garou's, I'd say one of his best monster form abilities. And what this is it's his ability to essentially cause shockwaves throughout the body to essentially cause what is essentially heart failure. We see this with Bang, as he was using it when Bang was using Warpstream Rock Smashing Fist.
Yeah, so Garou has a variety of abilities, including radiation attacks, durability negation in the form of his shockwave fists, copying your abilities as long as he can understand them, which is something people forget. He has to understand how the power works to copy it. You can't show him Doctor Strange opening a portal to the dark dimension and Garou is going to do that too. He wouldn't know what the hell he's doing. You could argue for some characters he could try to blow up the planet, which that wouldn't be in character, but he does get kind of desperate, so you could probably argue he would try it at least. However, you may notice that Garou's looking a little short in comparison to Cell Saga tier characters in both speed, strength, and durability, even with these intense powers, which are notable to be fair. It just seems very unlikely that Garou would be able to defeat people. Copying is a thing that people will say has no limit to it, because Garou said he'll copy Saitama limitlessly. The issue with this is Saitama was getting stronger to no end, and it just surpassed Garou's growth anyway. Meanwhile, you have these characters who are much stronger than Garou at the first level, and many of them are not going to be using their full strength at the start. For example, if you really want Garou versus Perfect Cell, Cell holds back massively in his early stages of perfect form. This is the only reason why Vegeta did anything to him with his Final Flash, is because Cell was barely trying. We see in the anime that a Cell Jr., which is weaker than Cell, very obviously, can slap a stronger Final Flash away with one hand. And Cell was holding back against Goku, who was much stronger than Vegeta and Trunks, even after their second training, and still powered up 3 times just to fight Teen Gohan.
Also, I'd say on the versatility note, the fact that Cell, even in his weakest stage, his imperfect stage, he's an amalgamation of all the previous characters, main characters we can think about. Frieza, King Cold, he is literally parts android in him. That's how he was made. He's got Goku, he's got Vegeta, he's got Piccolo, and he knows their techniques, which means he has more versatility than Garou, because he has the versatility of several other characters who have more versatility than Garou. For an example, we talk about martial arts for a second. Well, I didn't mention any martial arts feats for Garou, and that's because, really, in Dragon Ball, the level of martial arts that Garou might be compared to is something very early on. When characters such as Goku against the Mummy can stand still and he's got absolutely no openings whatsoever, feat right there, then some person who's never been defeated in hundreds of years cannot find an opening from a guy standing still. That's something that's beyond most things in One Punch Man.
And if we're going to be referring to skill, this solidly goes to the Dragon Ball cast, at least anybody who's not, dumb. Kid Goku, on a level mentioned by Yamcha, that he should be at least sort of comparable to his grandpa Gohan, who is unrivaled in all disciplines of martial arts. Master Roshi is stated to know every single martial arts technique on the Earth, and the Dragon Ball Earth has much more advanced martial arts, as stated by the Man Wolf, who had a 30th degree Kenpo black belt, whereas in the real world it only gets up to about 10. Roshi stated that Kid Goku surpassed him by like the Red Ribbon arc, including in terms of skill, not just physical strength, skill included. Then you have Goku get even better over time as a child. He learns how to better control his ki and become a better fighter by training with Kami and Popo. That same Goku gets the equivalent of thousands of years of Earth's training by training with King Kai in terms of power, speed, and skill. He concedes that Vegeta's a better fighter than him in hand-to-hand combat. In their first meeting, Vegeta notes that Goku gets more skilled on Namek. Goku outboxed the hyper prodigy emperor of the universe, Frieza. The androids, despite having the Saiyan Saga data, say that they didn't think skills on the level of the Super Saiyans were possible, not just strength, but hand-to-hand as well. These people can also copy your techniques. Tien was able to copy the Kamehameha, seeing it just once. Same with Kid Goku. Cell mentions the same thing multiple times. He's a hyper genius who can see something perfectly and replicate it even better just by seeing it once. Like his multiform not draining his energy at all, unlike Tien's. Even if you want to say, but Garou can copy though, so can these characters. Garou would again be in the losing race, like he was trying to keep up with Saitama getting stronger. So he'd be overpowered, outsped, outskilled, and especially against characters who grow stronger in fights like the Saiyans, he'd still be on the losing end. Do we even cover Majin Buu?
No, we don't. We don't cover Majin. Yo, if we mention Kid Buu would kill Garou, go to the afterlife, and kill him again. We don't
How long was that? Was it like an hour?
It was like 30 minutes. So, thank you for having me on your channel, Christian Krimbus. Please check out his One Punch Man videos. They're some of the best on the platform. Way better than people with bigger channels. Seth and Chuck. Who said that?
That is some praise right there. Make sure you check out Godzilla's videos too. If you want it interesting on why Godzilla does not think the galaxy feat should be concluded from Cosmic Thermo Garou, he has an entire video on it. You don't need to ask him in the comment sections, you just need to check out his video.
Yeah, and even with such high scaling, wouldn't you like to see how Saitama fares against one of the strongest versions of the King of the Monsters? Come over to my channel and see how well kaiju do against various anime, comics, and against each other.
Oh god, I haven't said an outro. Well, thank you all for watching. See you all next time.